The Mask of Virtue. Understanding hypocrisy and moral pretenders. Hypocrisy, the act of pretending to have moral standards or beliefs to which one's own behavior does not conform, is as old as civilization itself. It is not merely an inconsistency between words and actions, but a deliberate performance. Hypocrites often adopt a virtuous facade, not because they believe in those virtues, but because they seek social power control or acceptance. This makes hypocrisy a dangerous and deceptive element of human behavior, particularly in moral and social leadership. The hypocrite's danger lies in their influence. When someone publicly upholds ethical standards while privately violating them, they distort the moral fabric of society. Their double life sends conflicting messages, one that moral behavior is expected, and another that deception is rewarded. Hypocrisy thrives on compartmentalization, the ability to separate one's actions from one's stated beliefs. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance the tension that arises when behavior and beliefs do not align. While most people feel discomfort in such situations, the hypocrite often resolves it by justifying their behavior or by aggressively doubling down on their moral rhetoric. Another psychological mechanism at play is moral licensing. After performing a virtuous act, people often feel entitled to behave badly. For example, a person who donates to charity might feel justified in treating others with arrogance. This mental transaction creates a loophole through which hypocrisy flourishes. In the digital age, virtue signaling, the expression of moral values primarily for social approval, has become widespread. While sharing values can unite people, it also opens the door to performative morality. Individuals may amplify their moral stances online, not because they live by those values, but because it earns them likes, followers, or status. This culture of moral performance creates an environment where appearance matters more than substance. As a result, some individuals learn to speak the language of justice, equality, or compassion, without integrating those values into their actual behavior. Leaders who preach high standards but act otherwise undermine trust. Political, religious, and corporate leaders often fall into this trap. Scandals involving corruption, abuse, or dishonesty frequently reveal that the people involved maintained a public image of virtue. When a leader is exposed as a hypocrite, the damage is twofold. It erodes public faith in institutions and discourages genuine moral behavior. People may become cynical, believing that all virtue is a lie and that success requires deception. History is replete with examples of moral pretenders. In many totalitarian regimes, leaders enforced strict moral codes on citizens while living lavish, indulgent lives themselves. These regimes used morality as a tool of control, not a reflection of personal integrity. In religious contexts, leaders caught in moral failings while condemning the same behaviors in others have caused crises of faith in communities. The contrast between their teachings and actions highlights the devastating impact of hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is not limited to the powerful. In everyday life, people may condemn gossip but participate in it, preach kindness but bully others, or promote honesty while lying to protect their image. These contradictions may stem from insecurity, fear of judgment, or a desire for social inclusion. Parents, teachers, and mentors who exhibit hypocrisy influence the next generation. When children see authority figures saying one thing and doing another, they learn to distrust morality as mere pretense. The most insidious effect of hypocrisy is the erosion of authentic moral culture. When moral language is used to hide immoral actions, it cheapens the values it claims to uphold. Over time, society becomes skeptical of virtue itself. People exposed to hypocritical behavior may adopt moral relativism, the belief that ethical standards are subjective or meaningless. This cynicism breeds apathy, disengagement, and social fragmentation. Hypocrisy often begins with the desire to be seen as morally superior. This desire can be intoxicating, especially in a society that rewards virtue signaling. However, the pursuit of image over integrity traps individuals in a cycle of deception. In some cases, individuals internalize their own moral masks. They convince themselves that they are good because they advocate for good things. This self-deception makes it harder to acknowledge personal flaws and hinders genuine self-improvement. To resist hypocrisy, individuals must embrace humility. Acknowledging one's moral shortcomings is the first step toward integrity. Instead of striving for moral perfection, one should aim for moral sincerity, a commitment to live by one's values even imperfectly. Public figures who admit mistakes and take responsibility can rebuild trust. Their vulnerability makes morality real, not abstract. Encouraging open dialogue, ethical reflection, and accountability fosters a more honest moral culture. Society thrives when actions align with principles. Cultivating integrity requires effort, empathy, and courage. Educational systems, families, and institutions must model this alignment. Ultimately, the fight against hypocrisy is a personal and collective journey. It requires choosing truth over performance, substance over image. By lifting the mask of virtue and facing our imperfections honestly, we strengthen the moral foundations of our communities and live with greater authenticity and purpose. Destruction from envy. When people can't have, they destroy. Envy is one of the most corrosive emotions in the human experience. Unlike jealousy, which fears losing something, one has envy, is rooted in a deeper resentment. It arises when one sees others possessing something desirable and cannot bear the perceived inequality. The envious person does not merely wish to attain what another has. More destructively, they wish for the other to lose it. This dynamic is not only emotional, but psychological, feeding on insecurity, low self-worth, and a distorted sense of fairness. From ancient myths to modern psychology, envy has been depicted as a dark force that consumes individuals from within. In the biblical story of Cain and Abel, Cain does not ask God to bless his offering, but instead kills his brother, destroying the source of his envy. This story illustrates the primitive and destructive nature of envy. When individuals feel they cannot rise, they seek to pull others down. Envy is often subconscious. People rarely admit to being envious, masking it. Instead, with criticism, moral superiority, or feigned indifference, the envious individual may sabotage others' success, undermine their credibility, or spread rumors not always out of conscious malice, but as a twisted way of leveling the perceived inequality. Psychologist Melanie Klein described envy as an attack on goodness. In her theory, an infant envious of the nurturing breast does not just want the milk, it wants to destroy the breast so that no one else can have it. This primitive response carries into adulthood, manifesting in workplace rivalries, social media toxicity, and personal relationships. Social media exacerbates envy. People are constantly exposed to curated images of others' success, beauty, and happiness. For some, this becomes inspiration. For others, it breeds resentment. They may react by criticizing influencers, downplaying achievements, or creating narratives that dismiss others' success as shallow or unearned. In group dynamics, envy can spread like a virus. When one person is successful in a community of peers, others may feel threatened. Instead of celebrating the success, the group might subtly or overtly exclude, criticize, or isolate the individual. This phenomenon, sometimes called tall poppy syndrome, punishes those who stand out. Historically, envy has fueled revolutions and persecutions. In Nazi Germany, anti-Semitic propaganda played on economic envy, blaming Jewish people for financial inequality and portraying them as hoarders of wealth. The resulting hatred led to one of the darkest chapters in human history. Similarly, during the Khmer Rouge regime in Cambodia, those perceived as educated or wealthy were targeted for elimination. Envy masked as ideological purity became a justification for mass murder. The victims were not necessarily guilty of wrongdoing. They were simply envied for what they represented: knowledge, status, or privilege. On an individual level, envy corrodes mental health. Chronic envy leads to bitterness, depression, and a persistent sense of injustice. Instead of striving for personal growth, the envious person obsesses over others' advantages. This fixation prevents progress and poisons relationships. Friendships can be destroyed by envy. A person might become distant, hostile, or passive-aggressive when their friend achieves something significant: marriage, promotion, success. Instead of support, they offer sarcasm, indifference, or subtle sabotage. There is a perverse pleasure in destruction fueled by envy. Watching someone fall from grace, losing their job, relationship, or status, can feel satisfying to the envious. This feeling is not rooted in justice, but in a temporary relief from their own inferiority. This dynamic is particularly visible in cancel culture. While some call-outs are justified, others are driven by envy. When a popular figure is brought down, the crowd feels empowered. Their downfall levels the playing field, if only momentarily. Literature and film often explore envy as a central theme. In Shakespeare's Othello, Iago's envy of Cassio and Othello drives him to manipulate and destroy lives. In modern cinema, characters like Salieri in Amadeus or Tom Ripley in The Talented Mr. Ripley embody the slow-burning rage of envy. These stories resonate because they mirror real emotions. Most people have felt envious at some point. What defines character is how one responds. Do we allow envy to consume us, or do we transform it into motivation? The antidote to envy is gratitude and self-awareness. By acknowledging one's own worth and progress, envy loses its grip. Gratitude shifts focus from what we lack to what we have. It dismantles the illusion that others' success diminishes our own. Mindfulness practices, therapy, and honest reflection help uncover hidden envy. Once recognized, it can be redirected. Instead of wishing others ill, we can learn from their journey and focus on our own growth. Societies that celebrate collaboration over competition reduce the destructive effects of envy. Education that fosters emotional intelligence, empathy, and community can immunize the next generation against envy's corrosive pull. Leaders play a role too. By promoting transparency, fairness, and shared success, they reduce the breeding ground for envy. Recognizing others' achievements without glorifying materialism can also help balance perceptions. Ultimately, envy is a shadow emotion, something we all carry but often deny. It reflects our own fears, inadequacies, and unfulfilled desires. By confronting this shadow, we do not become weaker, we become wiser. Destruction from envy is not inevitable, but it requires courage to admit envy, discipline to resist acting on it, and wisdom to transform it. The more we understand this force, the better equipped we are to resist its most toxic temptations, and the closer we come to living with integrity, compassion, and peace. The mask of virtue.